Welcome, everyone, to Circle City Conversations. Thank you for joining me for our conversation today. Thank you to our sponsor, Hearst Lamontes. They're everywhere, right? Everywhere. Thank you to Hearst Lamontes, an Indiana law firm representing injured Hoosiers. I am here with my friend, a mother, a wife, a fantastic trial lawyer, probably one of the best trial lawyers that I know, and a fellow Max Goodwin Young Lawyer of the Year recipient, Katie Marshall. Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've been really excited ever since you asked me to do this.
Yeah, I'm excited about our conversation today. So, we usually start off with some really easy softball.
Whew.
Yeah. So we gotta warm you up, you know. So where are you from?
I'm from McCordsville, Indiana, Hancock County. And back then, now McCordsville is like the mini Fishers, or it's about to be. It's just an explosion. It's crazy. But when I lived there, all we had was the bait shop. And that's where we would walk to get candy, and then you go to the post office and get the mail. And that was the exciting activities during summer break.
So what's the body of water by there where people go fishing?
Well, there's Geist.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
Geist
so
Reservoir.
The closest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the name of the bait shop? Do you remember?
It was, I know Joey Dykstra's dad owned it. That's all I know.
So did you go to McCordsville? Is there a high school there?
So it's Mount Vernon High School.
Mount Vernon.
Yeah, and at the time, they had 2 elementaries, 1 middle school, and then high school. And my graduating class was less than 200.
Oh my gosh, very small. That's like my wife went to Chittard, which is a small school. I went to a big public school with 555 people that I graduated with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you were in high school, where did you go to college?
I went to IU Bloomington.
Yeah. What was your major there?
I started off with the intent to just major in criminal justice. Mm-hmm. But I really like to read, and I was good at English and writing, so I just happened to take enough English classes to add a double major, and then I also was really interested in psychology, so I was able to add a minor. So, wow. Yeah.
All really useful majors for a trial lawyer, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So, I actually just talked to Rudy Longman. He was a psychology major.
Okay.
Too, at Butler, you know.
Yeah.
So
good guy.
He is. He's a good guy. And so after college, you didn't go straight into law school, did you?
No, I did not.
No. Tell me a little bit about your path.
So I was struggling with what I wanted to do. I had the criminal justice degree, and actually I was really interested in like corrections, criminal corrections, and rehabilitation, and I was just really wanting to help save all these prisoners and keep them from recidivating. I was just really interested in how do the prisons work and what can we do to help them and help society. But I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really have any guidance. So I met with one of my professors, and I think I even talked to him about, I'm thinking about law school or thinking about maybe getting my PhD. I know I want to do more school. What would you suggest? And he suggested law school. And he said, if you want to teach or you want to go into any of that, you can do it with a JD, but if you get your PhD, you're limited.
Yeah.
So, and I'd always been interested in trials. So you probably remember growing up, like the O.J. Simpson trial was on TV, and we had Court TV. Did you ever watch that?
No, but I will say this. I mentioned Matlock earlier. I watched Matlock.
Okay.
I was like 10 years old, and at 11 years old, like a kid, I would watch Matlock religiously.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Court TV was like CBN, you know, right now, but it was just on cable. And so you could watch these trials, like the Menendez brothers trial may have been on there, you know, so you get to watch these entire trials from start to finish back in the, I guess it was the 90s.
Yeah.
And so when I was a freshman in high school, I was sick for like a month, and I was always interested, like I said, in Court TV. But I ended up being able to watch this whole trial while I was sick, and I was just so fascinated with all of it. I loved it. And actually, I wanted to go into forensics. You know, and this was before CSI and all that, but that's basically what I was interested in. And I was really fascinated with like the ballistics expert who talked about, it's kind of gruesome, but how they looked at the blood splatter in the car to determine where was the person who shot the gun. So when I went to IU, I actually was planning on being a forensic scientist. But then I took biology, and I was like, and this professor was really into mushrooms and fungi, and I'm like, this is the most boring thing ever. And I really like the social sciences. So anyway.
Yeah, and then you chose psychology, right? English?
Criminal justice and English with a psychology minor.
Oh, with a psychology minor.
Yeah.
Okay. And after you graduated, you were kind of trying to find your way. What did you do after that?
So I needed a job, and I thought, well, I'll just see if I can get a job at a law firm, or I applied to the prosecutor's office too as a paralegal, just to get my feet in the door and see how it was, and I needed a job.
Yeah.
So my first job out of IU was actually for Glazer and Ebbs in Indianapolis as a receptionist.
Okay.
And so that it's really kind of history from there. I was at Glazer and Ebbs for 16 and a half years, and well, I'll let you ask the questions.
Oh no, you're fine. No, so you started as a receptionist there, and there's so many different, you know this, there's so many different roles that people can play in a law firm. I mean, we've got a manual over here who does nothing but media all day, you know. So did you find yourself in a position where you could move up from being a receptionist doing other things?
Yes. So after about a year, I approached Rob Ebbs and said, hey, I want to do more. I want to actually work on cases. And I was fortunate because actually he let me do as much as I could, as much as time would allow as the receptionist in helping the paralegals and assistants do their job. But I let him know I wanted to do more. And so when the spot was free, he moved me up into the legal assistant role.
Yeah. And then did you, as a legal assistant, did that position ever evolve into maybe like a paralegal type of role?
Yeah, I always looked at it as paralegals have a certificate.
Right.
Is the way I always viewed it. So I just consider myself a legal assistant.
Okay. And during the course of your employment there, working as a legal assistant, you ended up deciding to go to law school, right?
Yeah, and it was nice because Rob knew that I was interested in law school, and so whenever we would talk, he taught me so much, obviously, about everything. But he would say, hey, Katie, when you go to law school, you'll learn that, you know, yada, yada, yada. And it was all this. When you go to law school, you'll learn that this. And so he was really instrumental in encouraging me to apply to law school and go to law school.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I stayed at Glazer and Ebbs, worked there as a full-time employee, and then I went to school at night.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I was a full-time law student, and a lot of folks that I know were full-time law students. I can imagine it can be a little difficult to work full-time and go to school, right?
Oh, it was. I mean, that was all I did. You know, I got up. When I was really good, I'd get up and I'd go to the Y, and then I'd go to work, and then I'd go to school, and then I might stay there and study, or come home and eat, spend time with my husband. We weren't married until my last year of law school, but we lived together, thankfully, because I'm not sure, that would be very difficult, you know, to maintain a relationship if you didn't, when you came home, you know, that person wasn't there already, you know.
Absolutely. How many credit hours did you normally take?
I don't remember. I mean, I want to say it was like 12, but it takes 4 years when you're in the part-time program.
Right. What piece of advice would you give to yourself now, knowing what you know now? What would you say to yourself back then?
I wish that I would have. Well, let me preface this by saying, when you're an evening student and you work full-time, the way I perceived it, at least, was a little bit different than the kids who just went from undergrad to law school.
Right.
If I was going from undergrad to law school, I would probably have been more social, and it's more like an extended undergrad, is the way I viewed it for them. But for me and for some of the people who were working full-time and had families, it was, we just need to get our degree and then go practice and make money to pay off our loans, you know, and like, how do you save money, and just all this balancing. So I wish that I would have worked on the social part of it. I wish I would have spent more time networking, because now, you know, I see people from my class, and I wish that I had a better relationship with them than just, oh, hey, we had that class together and I don't even know anything about you, you know. Because it really was just being focused on getting it done and getting out of there, you know. Yeah,
that's funny you say. So Katie, I think, was very similar to Katie Karras in my office. Yeah, she had a young family, you know, and I, of course, am a very social person.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always willing to sit down and talk to someone, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot of thing that a lot of law students don't understand the importance of developing these relationships early on, right?
Right.
Yeah. So eventually you graduated.
Yes.
Right. And then what'd you start doing after that?
So I was at Glazer and Ems, and then I got to call my clients who had been a legal assistant on their case and say, hey, I'm an attorney now. So I'm your attorney if you're okay with that. Rob just said, well, just continue with your cases, and as you get, new cases, you'll be bringing in cases as an attorney.
Okay.
And before that, I was sort of like more of a law clerk, and I was a certified legal intern.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I was able to handle hearings even before I graduated. So, and it was nice because, well, actually, I was interested in criminal law. Yeah. I really wanted to do criminal defense.
Yeah.
But by the time I graduated, I just thought I already know so much about personal injury that I can hit the ground running if I stick with that. And if I do criminal, I'm going to have to, I'll be a newbie, and I really have an advantage right now because I've been working in this field for, at that time it was, 8 years.
Right.
So anyway, I just hit the ground running, and I got a lot of trial experience early on, which was fantastic. Not very many people, not very many young associates get to do that. Yes. Not very many female associates get to do that, and then just not very many attorneys do that. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah, I was reading a statistic the other day. It's like, 99% of lawyers have not tried a case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Right? And for me, and I know it's the same for you, like, I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Right.
Right?
And I feel like, too, if you don't start early, then I think it becomes more of a stressful situation because now, you've been in practice 10 plus years and you haven't tried a case, and people look at you because you're a certain age and they have this expectation that, you're just going to be good because you've been practicing for 10 years, and that's not necessarily true. So that's a lot of pressure, added more pressure than there already is.
Right. How long after you became a lawyer were you trying your first case?
I don't remember. I remember the first case I tried.
Tell me about it.
It was against Eddie Reichert when he was at Farmers. Yeah.
He's a plaintiff's attorney.
I know, yeah. Which is, a great person to try a case against. He is very gracious and kind. Yeah. And he knew, so when I'm stumbling in a doctor's deposition, he didn't make me feel bad about it. Yeah. And he won, except I had to file a motion for editor to get medical bills as our verdict, and I did win that. So, yeah. And then later, Eddie contacted me and asked me for the motion I filed so he could use it in one of his cases, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah. That's trial lawyers for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. We'll talk about ITLA later on. I want to talk a little bit more. You really have done a fantastic job trying extremely tough cases.
Oh, thanks.
Especially early on. I'm talking about soft tissue type cases. Whiplash is a term that I hate, but cases where maybe the insurance company thinks that, there's only a few thousand in medical, what's the worst that could happen? And you've had some success doing that. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. What have you found has been kind of the factor that you've used or what you've been able to leverage to get better verdicts on a case where sometimes you would only see a $10,000, $15,000?
Well, first I would say that in those cases, a lot of times you have nothing to lose, right? Because they haven't offered the medical bills or they've just barely offered the medical bills. So why not go try the case? Exactly. To an extent. Some people look at it as, it's just low medical bills, this case isn't worth much, we should try to settle it for whatever we can get. But on the flip side, you've got nothing to lose, so why not try it? And I've found with those cases a couple things. One, soft tissue injuries can be permanent and very debilitating. Broken bones heal, and a lot of times people recover, assuming they don't have to have any screws, put into an ankle or something like that. A lot of times they recover well and they don't have any ongoing issues. But if you sprain your neck and it can persist forever, you know, and if you have an underlying issue that makes you more vulnerable to that and making it like a longer lasting issue, it could be a permanent thing. And so, and people know that. That's the thing too. Like, how many people have broken a bone? Not as many as people who have woken up with a crick in their neck, right?
Exactly.
And everybody knows how that, you know, it just sucks during the day. If you have a stiff neck and every movement, you're just like, oh, and you're miserable and you're cranky. And, you know, so people, it's that common experience of, okay, I've been there before, which I think helps.
Yeah.
And then you have the jury deciding it. So you have these people who understand this person's pain and suffering, and they feel the pain, and they want to compensate that person for it.
Yeah.
So instead of putting it in front of an adjuster who's got this formulation they plug into a computer and outspits some percentage of number, you have a jury who relates to it, they get it, and you know, you can tell your client's story. And so anyway, I think that's a huge part of it. It's just being able to put it in front of real people and give the human story.
Yeah.
You have such a good chance of really getting a good verdict that way versus just settling for whatever the adjuster thinks it is.
Yeah.
It's worth.
Which is usually some number, like you said, that a computer spits out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've always thought of it like, I've got 6 people sitting in that box, not 6 computer programs.
Yes.
You know, and they're the ones that are going to be deciding. Just like you said. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the cases you've worked on, obviously within our confines as lawyers. So what's like maybe something that was really memorable to you, a case that you tried? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, one that comes to mind is one where my client was an immigrant, and he drove a taxi, and he was rear-ended, and they blamed him for being stopped in the lane that he was stopped in. A long story short, but fault was disputed. And his medical bills were low, and the only thing he did was go to the chiropractor.
Okay.
And I won't really get into the details of it, but this insurance company basically has a huge vendetta against this outfit, this chiropractic outfit. And so they were, you know, just bound and determined that they were not going to pay on this. They were going to fight it tooth and nail, and they were going to try to make a case against this chiropractor office. You know, it had nothing to do with my client.
Wow.
Obviously. At least that's the way I perceived it, okay? Yeah. You know, and so they just felt like there was no way my client was going to get a verdict because of, you know, all these facts, okay? And he only treated for 6 weeks or something, but really he couldn't afford treatment, you know, and he didn't know where to go, and he had to keep working, and he is a fantastic person. You know, I really enjoyed being with him. He was easy to work with, and he was really inspiring, you know. So they offered, I think, less than medical bills, and so we're like, okay, we've got nothing to lose, let's go try the case. And actually, some evidence came out that violated a motion in limine, and so this is in the defense case. So we put on our case. This is like day 2 or 3 of trial, and something comes out that the defense elicited, and I moved for mistrial, and it was granted.
Yeah.
So we tried the case again, like a year later, or 6 months later, and actually we had a good jury, and trial went well, and we got a verdict. They did put some fault on my client. I think the verdict that he ended up coming home with was $85,000 instead of the $5,800 that they'd offered. So, yeah, I was really proud of that case and my client for sticking through it, you know? I mean,
trials.
Yeah. Well, and the whole litigation, you know, the whole time they always beat up the plaintiff. This is my experience. But they always beat up the plaintiff and make them feel like they did something wrong. It's accusatory. And the clients, I'm sure you've heard, Alex, why am I the one who's having to explain when he's the one who hurt me, you know? And it can get so frustrating for the clients, and they really have, the ones that go to trial are the ones that are persevering and putting up with all that. And it's hard enough that they're hurt, and then they have to defend themselves, and then go through all of this to get justice. And that's why we do what we do. We help the people along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that right there to me is quintessential insurance company BS. They make them feel bad about making a claim. It's mind-boggling to me. This is why we pay for insurance.
Exactly.
You know? And it works is the thing with a lot of people. you know, and you, like you said, you need that client that's tough. It's going to persevere. It's going to say, you know what, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not, you know, I did not choose for this to happen to me, and it did. And now the insurance company, it's time for them to pay up.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you worked at Glazer Nebbs for a while, right?
Yes.
You said 6?
I think it was 16 and a half years total.
And then you had an opportunity to go work somewhere else, and I've spoken to some of your partners before.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I joined Christie Farrell Lee Bell. It was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I've got to say that the experience I had at Glazer and Ebbs was fantastic. You know, Rob and Teresa Ebbs have been my mentors the whole time, and thank God for them. And they're the ones who really helped me get the experience that I got. And so it was just time for a change. Like I felt like I just needed something new, something fresh. I'd been there a really long time, you know, and I was just ready for something different. And the opportunity came up, and you know, I'd always looked at Lee and the firm as another mentor and just this amazing firm. And so, I'm very thankful that I'm able to work there. It's a fantastic group of people as well.
Yeah, and you know, Glazer and Ebbs, I mean, they are trial lawyers.
Absolutely.
Grind it out.
Yes.
Yes, you know, so you get a lot of really good experience, whether it's like trying a $500,000 $1 million case, right, to a $20,000-$30,000.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and frankly, my mindset is I just try them the same, right?
Exactly, as you should.
Yeah.
And you know, I wonder sometimes if the insurance companies, I mean, they know now we have reputations, right? That we will try any case and we're going to try it hard no matter what the case is. And even though you may treat that case differently, I'm not going to, and watch me, you know?
Exactly.
You know, I love that.
Yeah. It's like challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so working, now you've been working with, at Lee Christie's office with them and their team for 2.5 years. You were, I talked to Lee a little bit about it, the Tesla verdict. You were involved in that as well.
Yes.
Working with them. Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
It was crazy. It was like being in a movie. It was just insane with all the different defense lawyers and the number of defense lawyers and all the tactics and the motions and you know, they're getting paid by the hour, so why not? You know? It was just crazy. Lots of arguments, constant arguments, motions being filed during the trial, and us responding to motions during the trial.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
Isn't that, like, that to me, that would drive me nuts. Like, and I've dealt with it, and it does, like, having to respond to a multiple page motion. You are literally getting ready to cross-examine their witness or present testimony the next day.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with this legal issue.
Right. And you know, a lot of times I think it's a strategy to throw you off your game. That way you're not as prepared.
Right.
Luckily, we also had a great team and, you know, a lot of people working on everything. So it was great to be able to divvy up the work more than I'm used to.
Yeah.
So that those who weren't taking witnesses could work on the motions or the responses or prepare instructions or whatever needed to be done for the next day. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and you mentioned you had a great team. Nick Rowley was on that team.
Yes, and Karen Zaka.
Yeah, and Karen. And I remember talking to you, this was years ago, you were at Glazer Nebbs. I remember talking to you about the trial by human kind of style. And I remember I got the book after that, read the book, I thought it was amazing. But that kind of mindset when it comes to litigating and trying these cases, let's talk about maybe the smaller ones.
Quote unquote, right?
Quote unquote, smaller ones, right? Yeah. Permanent neck pain, it's a smaller case because you only have $3,000 in paid medical or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So have you found that using some of those techniques really helped you kind of elevate those cases?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, because it is connecting with the human story, and the human story is what the jury is going to relate to, and they get it. They don't care about the medical bills, you know, but when they hear that, you know, the client can't do a certain type of work anymore, he can't be a welder because the welding helmet, you can't, you know, flick the welding helmet on and off because of his neck pain. And then I had a trial where it was awesome. One of the witnesses was a fellow welder with my client, and he talked about how when you weld something on a building, you have a stamp that's put on it with your number. And so that's like a sense of pride for the welders that, hey, my stamp is on that building. You know, how cool is that?
Right.
You know, like what an accomplishment. And that was one of the things that my client had missed doing and, you know, being proud of because of the crash that he was involved in. So people like stories. They connect with the human story. So then Trial by Human is all about connecting with the human story and getting out these examples from the client of how their daily life or otherwise has been affected. So that it's more about that and less about X dollars of medical bills, which people don't care about really. Well, they do. I shouldn't say that. I think they care more, and they should, about how the person's life has been affected.
Yeah, absolutely. So funny you said that about the welder. My father-in-law is an old retired iron worker, and he helped put up the pyramids.
Oh, how cool.
Every time we drive past them, he said, yep, I did that.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? Like, how proud.
Yeah, and he did it, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago or something. Yeah. You know? But still, like, that's, I didn't know that about welders. It's like an artist signing a painting. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was taken from him.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's got value, even though the Colossus doesn't know how to calculate.
Yeah, right. How do you put that in?
It does not compute.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, going back to the Tesla verdict, what was the verdict?
It ended up being 42-some million. After comparative fault reduction.
Yeah, and they were like, Tesla was like scorched earth on you guys.
Oh yeah, and they still are. I mean,
you're still in the middle of it. Yeah, that's great. You know, something that a lot of our listeners may not know is, you know, you got this verdict months ago, right?
March, early March.
And you're still dealing with appeals, all kinds of things, right?
Oh yeah, and it will be for years, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully you get some post-judgment interest on that.
Yes.
Yeah, some judges don't like to give it.
Well, now post-judgment is mandatory.
Yeah, it's mandatory. We didn't get the pre-judgment. They paid right away their limits.
Oh, yeah.
But we wanted to. If we would have gotten pre-judgment on a lot of those cases, you can recover your costs. You know, let's say you get a $100,000 verdict. You know, you could potentially, depending on pre-judgment interest, recover.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And it is huge for your client because $15,000-$20,000 is a lot of money for anyone.
Yeah, and it really also is a negotiation point. When you say, okay, if you don't want to settle, if we go try the case and we get X dollar verdict, then you're going to have to also pay however much in pre-judgment interest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Right. So. Today, tell me a little bit about what your practice is like today. Like, what different kinds of cases do you work on, practice areas?
Yeah, so mostly personal injury, so premises liability cases, so injuries on property, car wrecks, semi-truck wrecks, a little bit of med mal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. You know, sometimes you just get really interesting, I don't call them strange, but different cases.
Yeah.
You know, we have had cases against mechanic shops for faulty work. So yeah, a little bit of everything like that involves injury.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much med mal you guys do until I talked to Tina.
Oh yeah.
I knew that she did nothing but med mal, you know, but I didn't realize like how many people you guys had there on your team.
Oh yeah.
Working on that stuff.
Yeah, we get a lot. Well, Tina is fantastic. Like she's the best, one of the best medical malpractice attorneys in the area.
Yeah.
You know, we know several that handle it and do it very well, but she's just fantastic. And so we get referred a lot of cases because of that. And med mal's expensive, they're difficult, so a lot of attorneys who could handle them will refer them, you know, for a better chance at success for the client, and they just don't want to do it, and I don't blame them. It's very hard.
Yeah. You guys don't do a lot of advertising.
No, we don't.
No.
Luckily we don't have to.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate.
Yeah. As someone who has to do advertising, you are very fortunate.
Yeah, it's hard, you know? I mean, it's hard. It's so important that you get the cases in, and we're lucky because there's such a history with the firm and the partners and the retired partners just having this reputation. But they worked hard to get it, you know? They earned it. And so luckily people have continued to refer cases to us because of that reputation. So I'm hoping that it sticks. But, you always feel like I really got to get out there and I need to network even more and be trying cases and keep my reputation up, because you just have to keep the cases coming in.
Exactly. And now, we're dealing with these private companies that are doing they're like going out getting leads and then selling them to the lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the things that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
It used to be you could just, have your name and your reputation and that was good enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but not anymore. So I was reading an article that said that in 2022, I think the top 10 advertisers in Indiana spent $22 million.
Wow, that's insane.
Right. Gosh, $22 million. And I know what billboards cost, and they are not cheap.
Yeah, and so much competition in our field.
You kind of, we did some billboards. We're doing the Fever sponsorship, and so we did some of that. But then you see them, and then you're like, you get washed out a little bit too, because everyone else has one.
Yeah.
And then you're just in the field with everyone else. So.
Do you keep track when people contact you?
I think I have always struggled with billboards because I think that just some other lawyers have kind of ruined that for us. So, but I've always struggled with them because it is hard to track, and a lot of times the billboard play is more of a branding play so that they remember you, when the bad thing happens to them or their parent or friend or whatever. Yeah. So I think that actually tracking the billboards is a little difficult.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's why what you see is you see the guys and gals with the billboards, but they've also done radio and TV commercials and things like that. Yeah. So let's change up a little bit. Let's talk about being a female trial lawyer.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about that. So what are some of the challenges that female trial lawyers are facing today in the legal field?
Well, I don't want to speak for all the female trial lawyers, certainly.
No.
When I think of that question, though, I think a lot of times, I'll say young lawyers, and including females, it just seems like sometimes they're just given the, I don't call it assistant role, but sort of as the attorney, like, okay, you can prepare the motions and stuff, but I'm going to handle the deposition. I'm going to handle the trial and you can sit with me.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate. And I don't want to, this is just what I think of. I don't know if the statistics of it, and if that's still going on. I know certainly historically that has been the case.
Yeah.
Let's see, there's always that you show up to the deposition or you show up to the deposition and they ask you if you're the court reporter,
Oh my gosh.
But it's some people take it very personally, and it is what it is, and you just show them, no, I'm the lawyer, and watch me,
Watch me. Yeah. Speak through your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And we've been so lucky because we've had a lot of people who have paved the way.
Yes.
For having the females handle the trials and be the lead, and if you don't want me to do that, then I'm just going to go open up my own firm and I'm going to do it, and that's what people have done. They've really paved the way for us younger female attorneys.
Exactly.
Set a great example.
Yeah. Speaking of trial, what is your favorite part of trial?
I knew you were going to ask me this because I've listened to your podcast, so I was prepared. My favorite part of trial is, as you know, the plaintiff always gets to go first, right?
Yeah.
So we put on our case and our witnesses. We do opening statements first. The defense goes. We put on our witnesses and evidence. Then the defense does theirs. The closing, we get to go first. Defense goes next. But then, this is my favorite part, is the closing rebuttal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's so cool that not only do we get the first word, we also get the last word.
Yeah.
And I love rebuttal because all the cards are on the table, and you've been working on this case for years sometimes, and you've been through it with your client, and you've heard everything, and again, you get the last word. And for me, at least, I'm emotional. I mean, I'm not crying or anything like that, but I'm passionate. I'm geared up, and I get the last word. And you do some of that time to respond to what the defense said in closing, but sometimes I'll already have something prepared that I'm going to say to leave the jury with.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that we get to say, this is your job and the importance of the job, and I'm leaving you to do your job. Like, how cool is that? It's just awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I just love that. It's a shorter period, and you get to lay it all out with your passion, and they feel it, and the jury knows that you're almost done with the trial, right? So they're more interested because they know it's almost done. So they're in it with you, and then you just leave, and you can just kind of breathe, and you're finally done with all of it, and you put your heart and soul on the table and laid it all out.
That's awesome. I told you guys, you're a true trial lawyer. You get so excited about
I
it.
do.
You are a true trial lawyer.
I think I get so excited about it because we are so fortunate, in this country, that we do have the jury who is making this decision. Like, how awesome is that we have a jury of our peers instead of the government or some corporation making the decision for our client. I just think that is the most patriotic and beautiful thing, and that is part of our service as Americans. And it's so cool too because you see the jury form a group. These people don't know anything about each other, and a lot of times they have differing opinions in jury selection that you learn about. But then by the time the trial's done, you see the people who are melding, and they have to make this unanimous decision together. And it's just so cool to see these humans band together and make a decision. And it's not easy. I'm sure in the jury room, they're back there battling it out, but they end up usually coming to a decision together that they're proud of. Not always is everybody happy about it, and you can tell when they come back with their verdict. But despite it all, they come back with this single decision. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent.
No,
but
you're great. I mean, this is why I love talking to trial lawyers. Because I feel the same way. I mean, I love doing it. And I think it is the truest form of capitalism. The individual's right to hold someone else, company, individual, accountable for what they did.
Yeah.
Without the government.
Yes, because not everything is a crime, but I always think about this book, and it's so weird because when I read this book for criminal justice, I was like, this is the most boring book I've ever read in my life. And I wish I knew the name of it. I don't remember, but the whole book was about how there were these property owners who owned livestock, cattle or something, and one cattle was getting over into the other person's land and hurting the land and whatever, and there were no laws in force about, I can't remember, what somebody should do. So they came up with a solution on their own, or they built their own fence, something like that. But they came together as a community and decided what is right and what is not right. And that's basically what, in a civil case, the jury does. They say, we will not tolerate this in our community, even if it's not a statutory crime that you could go to jail for, be punished for. We're not going to tolerate this. And you did this, it was wrong, and so you should compensate the person you hurt because you did that. And it does, I know we can't say send a message, but it does send a message when there is a verdict for some negligence that, hey, you got to fill potholes. When you get a complaint about a pothole, you got to fill it, because if you don't, somebody could get hurt, So it's so cool to enact action through a jury verdict, that as a community we can create action that makes our community safer. Right. I just think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you can really make a very positive change.
Yeah. And we, with legislation, there's so much politics involved in what law gets passed and what language gets used and all that. And so in the jury room, none of that comes into the decision. It's either what's right and what's not. Right. Without regard to politics at all, or who's getting paid under the table, or corruption, And that's why we have the system that we have with all the checks and balances.
Exactly.
And it's so cool that we get to be part of that. It's our job. Isn't that awesome?
I love it.
Yeah.
You're making me want to go try. I think we have a trial in October.
Well, good.
So, so let's change up a little bit. Let's talk about family.
Okay.
You have a family. What are some of the ways that you try to balance your busy practice, because being a trial lawyer is hard and time consuming, and then spending that time with your family?
I'm very fortunate. I have a fantastic support system. So my husband is great, and he's very understanding, and he's so supportive of my career and success. And so, if he has to care more for my son, I mean, we're very equal anyway, as far as taking care of things around the house and our son and everything. But, he doesn't complain or give me a hard time or make me feel bad if, he has to step it up more than usual. And my parents are super helpful. They're here in, McCordsville still. And then my in-laws, so we have a great family, and they don't, we ask for help and they just give it, which I'm so thankful for. We don't feel bad about asking, hey, can you take our son, for the weekend, whether so I can work or so we can get a break and we can go on a date, and so I just have a great support system that allows me to do everything I want to do. Be a good wife, I hope. Be a good mother, I hope, and be a good trial lawyer, which is hard. And it's not always, that like that. Like right now I'm in a good place, but sometimes if you're in trial or you're gearing up for trial or you just have a lot going on with your cases, it can't always be that everybody can step up for you because they have their lives too. And so sometimes it is really challenging, and you have to try to have that conversation with your kids about why you're not around, and they don't get it. How about you?
I mean, I get a lot of support from my wife, and she's amazing, and she understands that like you, this is not really a career, it's a calling. And we do this because we have an intrinsic feeling within us that this is what we were meant to do and how we're going to make the world a better place, and leave our mark. And my in-laws are also very supportive. My mother and my dad live down in Florida. But we have a tremendous amount of support. And my sister's wife, for example, she married one of my fraternity brothers and best friends from Hanover.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law is also my fraternity brother.
Cool.
That I've known since 1999. So it's always good to have your people there to back you up. But I did want to ask you something about your husband, who is a regular focus group attendee. Okay?
Well, he's a focus group organizer, really. And attendee. So I remember we were talking about this, it was a while ago, and I just thought this was such a cool story. Tell me a little bit more about that. So my husband, he runs a small business it's family business. But if he wasn't doing that, and if it didn't involve the school part of it, he would be a fantastic lawyer. He just loves it. He's very interested, which helps me too, because he's interested in my cases and what's going on, and he's very opinionated, and he isn't afraid to give his opinion. And so I don't know how it came about. I think at one point, this was years ago, where I just decided, hey, I've got this trial coming up, and I need to be able to talk to people about it and see how they feel about certain facts. And maybe even how I should deal with it, for a good recovery for my client. And he just said, well, why don't you just come over to the office during lunch and bring a couple pizzas? And he has like 6 or 7 employees. We'll sit around the table and we'll just talk about the case if you feel like that'll help you. And so now I've done, I don't even know how many times, and I've invited my friends over, my attorney friends over, and they'll do a focus group, and my husband's office loves it. Like, they love it. It's like being in a jury. I get to voice my opinion, and people are going to listen to it, and they want to hear my opinion. Now, a lot of times people don't want to hear your opinion, and on social media or in your regular life, but this is a place where your opinion is valued. So we just, for an hour, we just talk about the case, and you have a certain strategy of how you're going to present the case, and they eat pizza and they talk about it, and so far they've been pretty well on track as far as just cases and facts and what facts are really not good for a case, and value. Sometimes we'll get into value too, but you don't have a lot of time to talk about value.
So. I feel like value is always so hard. I like to, you take the bad things in front of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
All the bad parts, and then that's going to help you figure it out. Because usually, if it's a great case, you're probably not going to try it because it gets settled.
Yeah.
They're not.
Right.
Insurance companies don't try great cases.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And it drives them crazy because I'll give them a fact, and then I'll say, so discuss.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And they'll say, well, what's the date of this picture? And they want to know, and you say, well, why is that important?
Yeah.
And it drives them crazy because they're like, no, okay, so what is the date? And I'm like, I'll tell you later, but why is it important? And then you go on that, but then because they'll say, well, because I see this crack here on the sidewalk, and was this in the winter? Why is that important? Well, if it was in the winter, then maybe it just happened because, whatever,
right.
And they're like, oh, okay, I never even thought about that. So you get out what a jury is probably thinking just by looking at this picture,
Yeah, and it just costs a couple pizzas, right?
Yeah, and like I said, they love it. They're like, hey, Katie, how'd that case turn out? And we're very good about being confidential,
right.
So we don't bring up anything that would identify a client or a defendant. Yeah. But then they feel invested in it. So what happened? And they want to know the details. And then they say, so when's the next trial? When's the next focus group?
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk about the Indiana Trial Lawyers.
Yes.
And your involvement with them. You are the chair of the Women's Caucus,
yes.
Right? Yeah. So tell me, what are some of the things that the Women's Caucus has coming up? Like, what are some of the plans?
We have a few things, actually. So we have a pickleball tournament, which Katie Cares from your firm has helped out with. That was her idea, so that was great. So we have that coming up in September, and then Tess White is going to do a Zoom call. She's a mediator, so she's going to talk to us about tips for successful mediation. And then I'm trying to set up a fundraiser for a women's recovery house. Yeah. So just to awesome. Help people out. And we have this great organization with a lot of people in it, and they want to give. And so I'm going to give them something to give to that could use the money or whatever, the supplies, whatever they need.
Yeah, the way the ITLA works is that if you keep doing a good job, they keep pulling you back.
I'm sure. I've seen you.
Yeah.
I think, weren't you the young lawyer?
Yeah, I
now
was the young lawyer.
Look at you.
Yeah, I'm on the executive. 10-year term.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. So your firm does a world famous Christmas party.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to Lee about it. Are you guys doing it this year?
I hope so.
Yeah. It's probably a little bit too early to tell right now.
Yeah, or I don't know.
Yeah.
If the plans are in the works, I'm not privy to those.
The food is always so good.
I know. Yeah. And it's any time that you get a chance to see, especially defense counsel, for us.
Yeah.
Outside of a deposition or trial situation, I think it's really nice because you get to see them as a human, instead of just an opponent.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that can help you down the road when you need a favor sometimes, or you need an extension, or you just want to talk candidly about settlement.
Yeah.
So that I think that Christmas party is a great facilitator for that kind of informal discussion with all attorneys and judges. It's just nice to see people out of the typical element that we see them in.
Exactly. Because what we do is just so adversarial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I could see how maybe at least on the defense side, I've never done defense work. You haven't either.
No, I've not.
Pure blood.
Yes.
I could see how, and I've heard stories about how some adjusters, or insurance companies, defendants, can get a little bit upset about maybe the way that the lawyers are talking to them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I couldn't imagine having to deal with that. So
no.
Yeah. What are some of your hobbies and things that you like to do outside of the practice of law?
I've got too many hobbies.
Too many hobbies.
Yeah, I've got tons of hobbies. But the ones I'm into right now are modern quilting.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I've always sewn. My grandma sewed, my mom sewed, my sister makes great clothes. Actually, I made this jacket.
You made that jacket? Oh my gosh.
Get a picture of it. But now I'm on to quilting, so...
Is it therapeutic for you?
Oh, it's so therapeutic.
Really?
Well, it's kind of meditative,
You just, is it repetitive?
I don't do hand quilting because it's time consuming, but when you make a quilt, you got to choose a fabric, you got to choose a pattern, choose the fabric, cut the fabric, and so that just like you're cutting, it's just like kind of mindless.
Yeah.
And then sewing it is just, it's kind of meditative, just repetitive. You don't have to think about anything. It's just my time, Right. So, and then having a product at the end. Yeah. I'll have to show you some pictures of my work.
It's something to show for.
Yeah. So I'm into that a lot, big time right now. And then I've been really interested in plant propagation. So I've got like all the library books on plant propagation. Like taking an existing plant and then making more plants from it. Okay. So, like splitting hostas, or splitting lilies.
I need some of that. Can you come to my house? Do some.
If I can have some of the plants.
Use some plant propagation. I've got so many hostas.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Everything.
And you know what? They're expensive. If you go to buy them, you should split them and then send an email out to your neighbor saying, "Hey, free hostas."
Yeah.
They're at the end of the driveway.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I've always like grown things from seed. My grandma always had a garden. My mom always had a garden. So about Valentine's Day, I start growing my plants from seed. So I'm into gardening, and then I have a raised bed garden. I put my vegetables in. So gardening and quilting, reading, concerts. My husband and I love going to concerts, going to movies.
What's the last show you went to?
We just went to, we're going to Sammy Hagar on Friday.
That's awesome. Pearl Jam was just here.
I know. I've seen Pearl Jam. They're really good.
They are awesome.
Yeah. Did you go?
I did not go to this concert, but Travis Jensen, who was he.
Okay.
Yeah, he went to that concert, and my brother-in-law was there too.
Okay.
Yeah, they were at Deer Creek.
Yeah, I
grew off.
It's always Deer Creek to me. Yeah.
It's always,
I'm impressed that you're not from here and you still call it Deer Creek. I think that's awesome.
When I first moved up here, it was like I was in law school and I was younger, didn't have any kids or anything, so we went to a lot of concerts. Like that's in the summertime, and you didn't have school because I was a full-time student and school during the summer. And so I think that was like the last year that it was Deer Creek.
Okay.
Then it changed to Verizon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little Verizon stint, and now it's been Ruoff for a while.
But it's always Deer Creek to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Foreigner, and I can't remember who was with them. It's just sing along. Every song's a sing along Foreigner.
Those were some of my favorite concerts. We used to do we would get, now I'm going to age myself, but this was like 4 tickets for $99.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'd see like Def Leppard.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Def Leppard's awesome in concert.
Yes. Yeah. Cheap Trick, Heart,
Poison.
All of them. Yeah. We went to all of their shows. So.
It's so fun, isn't it? And Deer Creek is just
great.
The lawn is the best. It's great people watching. You're outside. It's the summer. There's just nothing like it.
Yeah. I was talking about. Have you been to the White River?
I have, but it's been a while.
Yeah. The new one is pretty cool.
That's what I've heard. It looks cool.
Yeah. I still have yet to go to a show at the Murat. So
okay.
For sure. Well, what's next for you, Katie?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
You got trial next week? You probably have
tomorrow or no? No, I don't have trial for a little while.
That's right.
Yeah, so just I always think about when people ask you who aren't lawyers, hey, when's your next trial? And you tell them, oh, it's not till next year. If they wonder, oh, so you just don't have anything to do? There's so much work. There's so much work that's involved without even having a trial.
Yes.
Whether it's pre-suit, discovery, motions, trial prep, bringing the clients in, like you said. So anyway, for me, I'm just going to keep trucking along and hopefully just keep doing what I'm doing.
And how can people get a hold of you?
So my Christie Farrell Lee Bell, and my email is katie@cflblaw.com.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm all pumped up now.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
Someone email her tomorrow if you need a trial, if you need someone to go try a case.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to Circle City Conversations. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future conversations.